right, wearing me out. Well, maybe tomorrow the world will wake and get it right, but I have my doubts, yeah. Well, I designed machines of war that scream through the sky. 'Cause I, for one, I like to go to bed free at night, under these stars and stripes. And I have my doubts that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts, and I have my doubts that we'll make it back out. Yes, I have my doubts, but they'll wind you up and pull the cord until you're spun right out. And I don't understand. Roll the dice and raise the price to feed the machine's mouth. Call it the progress of man. And I have my doubts that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts, and I have my doubts that we'll make it back out. I have my doubts, so I'll drink my stuff and raise some hell and shoot my guns to the end of my time. You can have the booze and go to hell and take the guns, but I know they won't be mine. We're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts, and I have my doubts that we'll make it back out. Yes, I have my doubts. So we're all messed up and out of touch. Let's text someone who's in the other room. So don't wonder why we don't say hi or know anyone. I might as well move to the moon. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, I hope that I'm wrong. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, I hope that I'm wrong. Well, the things I think, well, I lie awake and contemplate at night, wearing me out.
Good afternoon. Sorry, so late today. Unexpectedly, the gentleman came back, and I'll use that term loosely, just for fun. Came back to work on the windows again, and I really didn't want to try to do this particular show without being able to focus on it. It's a pretty serious topic, and considering how late it is today, for me to start the show, I don't plan on going beyond 8. So what I believe I'll do is spend the show talking about it. It definitely deserves the attention. And of course, I'm speaking about 9/11. Got up this morning. I don't have my flag anymore. I used to have a flag that was actually flying at my home at the time during 9/11. I had a flag that I flew all the time, and I held on to that flag for many, many, many years. Of course, I lost it down in Alabama with everything else, which is a shame. But it really eats at me that I don't have that flag anymore. And I used to, every 9/11, I used to fly that flag, and I used to light a candle on 9/11. And that meant a lot to me, and I can't do that anymore, obviously, without having it. This is the first year I've actually really done anything since then. And so I did what I could. I lit a candle, and I didn't have a flag to hang, so I put a copy of the Constitution next to the candle. So, because to me that has entirely encompasses the importance behind 9/11. There's different aspects that I think about when I think about 9/11. Off the top, probably the first aspect would be that, you know, I feel so sorry for all the victims. 3,000 people roughly lost their lives that day alone. There's been a mass continued amount of deaths ever since from health conditions due to doing rescue work there at Ground Zero. I sit here and I think about 9/11, and I have a flurry of thoughts, and it's not easy for me. I spent several weeks after that crying. I would just break out in tears, and it was just an absolute uncontrollable cry. I've never been through anything like that before, and I've never been through anything like that since. It was very, very devastating to me. I want to talk a little bit about that day and what I went through. Of course, anybody old enough to be old enough when it happened to remember, certainly, just like when JFK was assassinated, which I wasn't even born yet, but when he was assassinated, anybody that was alive remembers what they were doing. They remember that day. 9/11 started out just like any other day for me. I lived in a little town not super far from here called Sandoval, Illinois. And woke up just like any other day. My girlfriend at the time, she went to work. I didn't have to go to work till later in the day. I worked at a speed lube I was a senior technician at a speed lube. And so I woke up, I did my normal everyday thing. I was heavily involved in chat rooms. That's how I had met my girlfriend at the time. And I continued to go to the chat rooms because I was an administrator. Like I said, I've done website, chat room, forum administration for over 20 years now. So I was just spending my time in the chat room, just enjoying the company, being an administrator, doing what I normally did, my everyday routine, waiting to go to work. And I think I had to be in at work at 10 that day. And I remember somebody, a regular, coming into the chat room and saying we're under attack. The World Trade Center was hit by planes. And I was just like, what? And it really didn't have much of an impact on me at that moment when he said it, other than the fact that this is absolutely crazy. Now we're talking about dial-up days, okay? We didn't have broadband internet or anything like that. So here I am searching online for some content that I can watch with my crappy internet. And I believe it was CNN, if I'm not mistaken, that I finally ran across that I could actually play a very, very pixelated live feed. And it was at that time that I was just in absolute awe. I listened to the commentator as he was speaking and talking about the people jumping from the windows. And I just, it had such a profound effect on me. I had a hell of a time getting in that car and going to work that day. Hell of a time. But I got to work, and when I got to work, they had the radio on, and they were listening to a radio station that was reporting on it. And I can't remember for sure how long I was there, maybe an hour or so, I'm thinking. And the manager came out of the office and said, "We're going home." And I guess headquarters had said that we should just close up, go home, spend time with our loved ones. So I went home, and my girlfriend at the time, she was still at work. And I can remember going home and just, I got out of a chair, and a lawn chair, and I just sat out in the front yard. I just sat out there. And the most eerie thing was no planes in the sky. That was just eerie. I don't know why it is. I noticed it so much that day. But I indeed noticed that there were no airplanes in the sky. And that was pretty profound. When my ex got home, well, girlfriend at the time, and when her daughter got home from school, there was some serious hugs, some serious tears. I started right away digging into it. You know, a lot of people tell you about the event that woke them up. And I've heard several different events that woke up several different people. And, Sandy Hook and, the JFK assassination, several different events over the course of time. That's let people know, things just aren't as we're told. Now, I've been awake since I've been in high school, thanks to an incredible history teacher. But even though I was awake, I was like in a sense of hibernation, so to speak, up until this point. I sat down that night, and I'm going over news articles and thinking about these buildings. And by the time the night of September 11, 2001 was over, I knew that we had been lied to. I've always been really, really good at physics. I've been good at engineering, including architectural. And I knew that there was no way in hell that an airliner took down not one, but two of those towers. Not only took down two of those towers that were built specifically to withstand an airliner hitting it, but both of those towers fell at free fall speed in their own footprint. I knew damn well we were being lied to. So at that point, I started paying really, really close attention to everything coming out. All of the images, what video we could get, which wasn't much. But I immediately noticed that, like in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, there was no wreckage. None. And their excuse that, oh, well, it hit the ground with such an impact, everything was buried. That's bullshit, folks. That is complete and utter bullshit. Because it doesn't matter how hard you hit the ground. There are parts of that plane that aren't going under, like seats. Seats aren't going to go under. They're just not. You show me one plane crash, aside from the Pentagon in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, to where you don't see debris scattered all over. There's none there. Not at the Pentagon. Not at Shanksville. I spent a lot of time in 2001 digging through photos, digging through articles, information, reading as much as I could about the engineering of the World Trade Center. There's no way. So I started at that point. And again, I can't say that I wasn't awake before then, because I was awake. I just wasn't paying attention. That got my attention. I knew that when they had the Patriot Act ready to go, just needed rubber stamped, I knew the motive. At least the big motive. There's so many motives surrounding what happened. But the prime objective was the Patriot Act. That gave them the ability to completely take over this country. To legally, in a sense, override the Constitution and Bill of Rights. And that's what they've done. But I spent, I don't know how much time going over the video of that day and mourning for the victims. I have a folder to this day somewhere on one of my drives. Well, it's actually on several drives. That's just music from then. There were a ton of artists that came forward and they made like 9/11 versions of their songs. And once in a while, I'd open that folder and it would just be an uncontrollable cry and uncontrollable rage. Who the hell can do this to their own people? But I want folks to know something. I want folks to remember something, because this is important. It's important to me that the ones responsible are the ones that blame and the ones that pay. That is important to me. I want to see them to hell, and I want to make damn sure they rot in hell. But folks, we have to make sure that we have the right enemy. Every year, when this time comes, I see tons of posts to, never forget. But then it goes right into what we need to do to the Muslims. Folks, the Muslims are not responsible for this. Not at all. The whole Saudi Arabia thing, that's to throw you off. See, they realized that there were enough cats in this country that were on to their charade that they had to throw us something. So what did they do? They threw us Saudi Arabia. Wasn't them. I'm not saying that they didn't have any involvement whatsoever. I'm just saying that they are not the ones that planned it, they are not the ones that implemented it, and they are not the ones that seen it through. Again, they may have some type of ties to it, I don't know. But I think it's pretty clear that our government stood down that day. I think that's real damned obvious. They have automated missile systems, folks. If idiotic pilots, pilot students, whatever you want to call them, if they could have pulled off the maneuvers that was claimed, which, by the way, they can't, no pilot on this planet can pull off a maneuver that an aircraft cannot withstand, period. And at the Pentagon, there is no way an airliner could have banked like they said. There's no way an airliner could have flown as low as it would have needed to impact the Pentagon where it did. It's not possible. It is not possible. You know, there are some things in this world that just are not possible. So, again, these missile systems, these anti-aircraft, anti-missile systems, they're fully automated. And they're on all the time. I mean, duh, they're there to protect Washington, D.C. Not that day. All the planes that would normally be in the area, the fighter jets and stuff that would normally be in that area to protect that area each and every day, day in and day out, no, they were gone. They were on a training mission. So that, without a doubt, implicates our own government. Now, there's 1,000,001 conspiracy theories out there. And when I say that term, I don't mean that with a negative connotation. But I think it's been proven, for the most part, through several of those theories, that Israel had an extremely large involvement. I know there's been photos going around on social media lately about some fuses. It's an area I don't know. I don't know anything about demolition, folks. I want to say that the boxes had BB-18 or something on them. I don't know. But that's one of the things going on. There's a shipping container company or whatever, that there's some theories about. The boxes that had the BB-18 or whatever it is on it, those were Israeli artists. And I'm quote-unquote artists. I don't know. There was a security team that Israeli security team that were there installing camera systems or upgrading camera systems or something like that. You know, all these individuals had access to the areas that you would need to plant explosives. And that's what we're looking at, folks. We're looking at some type of explosives, without a doubt. So I ask people, before we have that knee-jerk emotional reaction that we want to walk over to our towel rack and start ripping the towels up just because we're pissed off at the Muslims, stop. That's what they want you to do. As long as you keep blaming them, we won't get the problem solved. It's the same with all these shootings of unarmed black people. Right? And they do it both ways in the media. They want you to focus on the race of the individuals involved, so that you don't actually deal with the police brutality that's happening. Oldest trick in the book, folks. I want to see individuals held accountable for this. I'm sure everybody would like to see that. I just don't know how it's going to happen. Back when Trump was campaigning, early on in his campaign, and I've mentioned this before, he started talking about 9/11, wanting an actual investigation into it, and talking about dancing Israelis. And I've seen the video, and I've seen the video years and years ago. And all of a sudden, just as quick as he started talking about it, he stopped talking about it. So folks, don't expect our government to try to get to the bottom of this, no matter who the hell it is in the government. Not going to happen. They'll get shut up one way or another. There are some awesome organizations that have assembled and tried to get down to the bottom of things. There's my apologies, I can't remember the names of any of them, but there's one in particular that has just a ton of people, and they're all pilots and architects and engineers and, you know, structural designers, and not a one of them says that any part of this was even possible. Like I say, you can't bank that type of airliner in the manner that they said it was banked. Okay? And in order to approach at a level in which that airliner hit the Pentagon, you would have had to have flown through streetlights, lamp posts. Not going to happen in an airliner, folks. Those things aren't tanks. It doesn't take much. You look at what happens when hail or a bird strikes one of those aircraft. The damage is incredible. Okay? Can you imagine a steel, street lamp post? It would have been lights out then. It would have sheared that wing right off. It might have scooted up to the Pentagon, but that's as far as it would have got. Not only that, but once they got to the Pentagon, pretty much the motors, the engines of that jet would have had to have been either dragging the ground or digging into the ground a little bit to be able to have impacted on that wall where they claim. And lo and behold, how would we know? Because none of the cameras worked. Nope, we don't have camera footage from anything except one little bit of footage, real grainy, pixelated footage that came from a parking lot or something like that that was leaked. Okay? But we don't have any footage from the gas station because that was taken. We don't have any footage from the Pentagon because Oh, well, the cameras weren't on that day. How's that work? The Pentagon. And no cameras on? I am not that foolish. Absolutely not that foolish. So what do we do? Hell, we can't even get the report from the JFK assassination because Trump himself set that back further. You think he's going to give us the report about 9/11 or anything true about 9/11? It's not going to happen. The government's never going to give you that information, just like they're never going to give you the JFK information. Never. It's amazing that we know what we do know. I wished I had answers. I wish that there was something that I could do so that the 3,000 people that died that day alone wasn't in vain. There's a documentary that I've watched I don't know how many times. And it was by the gentleman that was there actually shooting a documentary. They were the ones that actually caught a glimpse of the first plane hitting the first tower. They were actually running around with a firefighter or a company or whatever you call it, an engine company. They were doing a documentary on what it was like to be a rookie. And they wound up being a documentary about 9/11. And that is probably one of the hardest things to watch. And should I say hear. In part of the documentary, they're actually inside one of the towers. And I think they're in the second tower that was hit. I think. Because as they were in there, as I recall, the plane hit. And they were down, like, I guess, on the ground level. And it was at that time that one of the fire chiefs, or maybe he wasn't a chief, maybe he was I think he was the clergy, struggling for what they call it. I'm pretty sure he was the clergy for the fire department. He lost his life at that moment. But then for a pretty good amount of time, the camera was in that building, and you just kept hearing these insanely loud bangs. And that was the people that were jumping. I'm half a country away from that. I couldn't imagine what it would have been like to been there, to been inside that building. Can't imagine the feelings one would have to say, well, if I go out those doors, I've got to time it right. I've got to be careful so I don't get hit by a human being jumping. We need to find out who's responsible for this. We need to send them to hell. in the most painful, slow manner. The music that I listen to still, it haunts me almost. The songs, I'm hearing it in my head. It was incredible stuff. There was one good thing that I seen from that, and that was the unity of this country immediately following. I'd never felt so close to strangers in my life. You go to the store and everybody acknowledged everybody, and that was in an area that, where I lived at the time, people really were not that nice to one another. But it's like you couldn't go into a store to where people did not acknowledge each other's presence. It's like a feeling of gratitude just because that person was alive. Again, half a country away. We need that back in this country. We need it now. 9/11 was 3,000 people. I really feel like we're about to lose millions. We don't learn how to love and cherish one another. Stop finding reasons to ignore the sufferings of others. "17 years, I would never guess. I would never guess in a million that in 17 years a society could go from where it was to where it is. I don't do this because I want to do it. I absolutely hate public speaking. I'm not good at it. I would rather spend my time doing something else. I have nothing but admiration and thankfulness for Jen, for sitting by my side day in and day out. While I spend much of my life digging into news, and in 4 hours here. There's days that she goes all day without something to eat because I don't get a chance to get back there until after the show starts. Sometimes not till towards the end of it. And don't get me wrong, she's not starving to death. People need to understand that this job takes a toll. It has some pretty extreme sacrifices. And that's fine. I don't live for me anyway. I never have. But I don't want to do this for nothing. And it feels like an uphill uphill battle. The more and more that I show things and then I explain things and then I feel like I'm not getting across. I'm not teaching well enough. If we don't pull our heads out of our asses and get our shit together, folks, there will be millions killed by the very ones that committed those acts that day. They've spent every day preparing for it since that day. Because once we, the people, allowed that Patriot Act to get passed, it was over then. What we're living now is an illusion. The freedom that we have, and I use that word very loosely, the freedom that we have is nothing but an illusion. Because even the freedom that you think you got, they will take away in a heartbeat. I mean, wouldn't you think that you could ride a bicycle down the street without being bothered? Yet the police are ramming teenagers on bicycles out of, concern for their safety because they don't have a light. Happening, folks. It's happening. I just posted an article the other day about a Dodge Hellcat that is available for purchase from law enforcement, an armored Hellcat. What in the hell does law enforcement need with an armored Hellcat? What's next? Apaches? Federal law enforcement already has Predator drones. And they want to bitch about your semi-automatic rifle. We've got a lot of hard decisions ahead. Like I said the other day, my dad taught me to pick my battles wisely. And while it's taken many, many years to heed the things that he's told me, that's one of them I learned to heed. And this is a battle I picked. The war on Americans. The war on the Constitution. There's only one more important battle that I could think worth fighting for, and I'm fighting for that too. And that would be the war for spirituality. I don't want to say Christianity. I don't want to say, I'm going to say spirituality, because I don't care what religion that you want to practice, as long as you're not harming people I will defend it. Just like the First Amendment. I don't have to agree with you to be willing to defend your right to say it. That's what I'm saying, folks. Look at how far we've come in 17 years. I mean, I know there was back and forth politically then. There's always been back and forth politically. When this country was being founded, there was back and forth politically. But you didn't have the nonsense, not even close to the nonsense that you have today. I really wished I had more answers. As the days go by and I think about it more, I get more questions. Really, a really tough call. I'd say probably the most important thing that we can focus on is the importance of bringing us below us up. That's incredibly important. I'm fortunate there too that my dad had good lessons. My dad was a supervisor for pretty much of his life. So he taught us about supervision, taught us about what makes a good supervisor, taught us how to lead. And that's one of the things that he taught us. That, son, when you supervise, don't go and criticize somebody unless you're willing to help them. Don't go and tell somebody they have to do a job better if you don't know how to do it better yourself. We need to apply that in all the areas of our society. Look at all the veterans that are on the streets. I wonder how many of those veterans you could sit down and talk to, and how many of them would when you finally break everything down, you would find out that they forgot how to live. Or there's some barrier in front of them, stopping them from being able to live. Right? Because when they go to bed at night, the memories, the thoughts, the flashbacks of what it's like to be at war. It's a constant reminder. Can be overcome. But it can't be overcome in this society that we have today. There's too many people kicking them. And there's a lot of veterans on the streets. They're in a mental, emotional trap. And it's a nasty one. I know firsthand all about PTSD. I may have not got it from combat in a foreign war. Mine was from a sense of combat, all right, but I don't know what the hell the war was. It wasn't abroad. It was in my own home. Growing up. And I can tell you it's not something that you just get over. And if you're in that position, until you know deep down that someone else is truly trying to understand you and truly not judging you, you won't open up the least bit. To me, veterans are some of our most precious people in this country. Now, while I may not believe in the wars they were sent to fight, I believe in what they did. I believe in the courage, the discipline, the strength to do what they did. My heart's heavy to hear about how the Vietnam vets were treated when they came back home. Gotta do something, folks. What's going on is definitely not something of we the people. I don't think there's too many of us that would just walk up and just start killing people because they were from a different country. And again, that's not the veterans' fault. That would be government's fault on all sides of the war. Got to do something. Because they're pretty much out of other countries to kill people in. And it won't be much longer and they're going to focus on their own people. They have been for some time. Just not an all-out war. Folks need to stop and remind themselves as much as possible that you're talking about a government that on September 11, 2001 didn't bat an eye to allow 3,000 people to die. I certainly hope that you don't think you and I are special. That they wouldn't do the same to us. Over 3 people a day die at the hands of law enforcement. And granted, some of those are as clean cut as can be. But a lot of them are not. And that's those that get killed. How many get beaten? How many get jailed over absolute ignorance? You don't think that there's already war on United States citizens? And throwing people in prison because of an unapproved pond on their property? Or because somebody's trying to go off-grid? You don't think that's a war on the people? Here we sat here and listened to Obama's lying ass talk over and over and over about how we needed to be more responsible about energy. Yet while he was in office, look at all the people that got in trouble because they wanted to go off the grid. Now, how can you get any more responsible about energy than by providing your own clean energy? I mean, they're coming out against the people that live up in Alaska for having wood stoves now. Not just now, I think that goes back to like 2016. They want all the people in Alaska to switch over to, a type of heat like natural gas or electric. But God knows, no firewood. No wood stoves. They want absolute and complete control. And they've just about got it. They already control our water. They already control our food. They already control our housing. What is it going to take for people to understand where we truly are? It's already too late. Why are we still waiting? Waiting for somebody to make a move because we've seen it. Bundy's, Savoy, Randy Weaver, Waco. Time and time and time. We've seen it. What about the guy that built a tank out of his bulldozer? What about the guy, I believe in Texas, that flew his plane into the IRS building? What are we waiting on again? Because there are people standing. There's just nobody standing with them. With the exception of the Bundys. And they sure in the hell should have had a lot more people than they did. Same solution I keep saying. We've got to get at least just as many people that are willing to go watch a ball game on the weekend to be willing to go to the state capitals and the federal courthouses and surround them and not leave until these bogus representatives, so-called representatives, leave. Government should fear its people, not the other way around. And I know you've heard that so many times, and I know it sounds cliche, but it's fact. I think the next incident they pull to gain that complete power is going to be on a level that most can't even fathom. And I believe millions will perish. I tell people to get ready. I sat here and I beg people to get ready when we can't even really get ready. We don't have the means. We don't have the financial means to prepare. We do what we can when we can. which isn't much. Do what you can, folks. Do what you can. Get ready. There's a hell of a storm coming. And we've got more storms after that. And it's coming quick. Because let's just say that Trump is at least somewhat on our side, fighting for our team. You don't think that there's going to be backlash? You don't think that they're going to come after us? Look at what happened to the conservatives that went after Obama. Look at what the IRS did to them. I'll ask the question again. What makes you and I so special that they won't do it to us? Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap it up tonight. I know it's an extremely short show. I wanted to come on. I wanted to talk about 9/11. I wanted to talk about its impact, its importance to me. And I wanted to talk about how it's affecting us today and in the future, the near future. Make sure, as Prepper Nurse says, hug and kiss the ones you love. Especially today. God bless all the families and the victims, all the first responders. All the rescue workers. All the people that tirelessly dug and dug and dug and refused to go home. Because if they stopped, they may not be able to save one more person. I can't imagine. We had a big flood in 1993, and I volunteered time sandbagging. And that was a flood. And it had to force me to stop working. Literally force me and drag me away and make me take a rest. Because I wouldn't stop. Because I was trying to save people's homes. I can't imagine what it would have been like to be a ground zero. Alrighty, folks, I hope you have a good night. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow, hopefully on time. And as always, and I do mean this, even regardless how frustrated I get sometimes, or how I may sound, or how I may come off, we love you. God bless you. Be one with your spirit.